Welcome to Hollywood Graveyard, where we set out to remember and celebrate the lives of those who lived to entertain us by visiting their final resting places. Today we're heading back up the coast to the Bay Area to revisit San Francisco, where we'll find such stars as John Madden, Angus Cloud, Steve Harwell, Farina, and many more. Join us, won't you? 5 years ago, we made our first trek north to the Bay Area to explore its many cemeteries and visit the graves of legends from Shirley Temple to Joe DiMaggio. There's always more to discover in this vibrant part of California, so we're back again today to visit some stars we missed the first time around, and others we've lost since. Our explorations will take us not just to San Francisco, but the greater Bay Area, including Oakland, San Jose, and of course, Colma, the Bay Area's very own necropolis, a city of the dead. The Bay Area has some of the most colorful cemetery scenery around. In fact, in true San Francisco form, we'll experience a veritable rainbow of color on our tour today. So come along with me and this magnificent crane as we find more of the entertainers, sports heroes, and other historical figures who call the San Francisco Bay Area their eternal home. If you haven't done so already, be sure to check out Part 1. As we make our way north, we'll stop just south of San Francisco, in the San Jose area. Los Gatos, to be precise. This is Los Gatos Memorial Park. Here we find the grave of a shooting star who broke the mold, Steve Harwell. Steve was lead singer and founding member of the rock band Smash Mouth. The band formed in the 90s and found major success with hits like Walking on the Sun,
You might as well be walking on the sun,
and All Star.
Hey now, you're an all-star, only shooting stars break the mold.
They also did a cover of the Monkees' song I'm a Believer, featured in the movie Shrek, along with All Star. Steve left the band in 2021 for health reasons, and 2 years later passed away from liver failure due to alcoholism. He was 56. His epitaph, Only Shooting Stars Break the Mold, is a lyric from their song, All Star. Continuing north into the peninsula, we arrive at Golden Gate National Cemetery in the city of San Bruno. As a national cemetery, this is where veterans and their families are laid to rest. Among these heroes are some entertainers as well. We'll begin here in Section G. Here lies Peter Kyne. He was an early 20th century author. His biggest success was his first novel, The Three Godfathers, published in 1913. It would be adapted on film 5 times, including by John Ford, starring John Wayne. In total, more than 100 film adaptations of his work have been made. Peter lived to be 77. Let's double back west toward the hill. Resting in this hillside is Toni Stone, real name Marcinia. She was a professional baseball player. In 1953, she became the first woman to play as a regular on a professional baseball team, playing alongside the boys of the Indianapolis Clowns in the Negro Leagues. She also played for the San Francisco Sea Lions and the New Orleans Creoles. As the first female player in the Negro Leagues, she was often taunted by the men, telling her to stay home and stick to cooking and knitting. But Toni was undeterred, her baseball skills matching those of her male counterparts. An eponymous play was made about the life of Toni, and in 1993 she was inducted into the Women's Sports Hall of Fame. She died from heart failure at age 75. Just across the street north is Section 2C. Here lies Kay Boyle. She was another noted author resting in these grounds. She's best known for her fiction, which explored personal and political themes. She published over 40 novels, as well as award-winning short stories and collections of poetry. Some of her writings and activism warned of the growing threat of Nazism and fascism in the 30s and 40s. A few of her writings would be later adapted on the big and small screens, including the film 5 Days, One Summer, which starred Sean Connery, an adaptation of her short story Maiden Maiden. Kay traveled the world throughout her life, writing and engaging in activism, her own adventurous exploits woven into the narratives she penned. Kay lived to be 90. Northwest in this same section, down the hill from Kay, is the grave of Theodore Marcuse. The actor is remembered particularly for his role as villains on screen. Theodore appeared in a few films like Harum Scarum and Mara of the Wilderness, but his best-known work was on television in the 50s and 60s. He made memorable appearances on shows like The Monkees, Batman, The Twilight Zone, Star Trek, and more. Theodore was just 47 when he died in a car accident. Our last Golden Gate stop brings us to Section 2B, all the way to the western fence. Here lies Percy Kilbride. He was one of the most popular character actors in the 40s and 50s, known for his role as Pa Kettle in the Ma and Pa Kettle series of comedies, alongside Marjorie Main. He first played Pa Kettle in 1947's The Egg and I. This would lead to a series of 7 Ma and Pa Kettle films in the decade that followed, including his final released film, Ma and Pa Kettle at Waikiki, in 1955. Outside of Pa Kettle, he appeared in films like Black Bart and State Fair. In September 1964, Percy and fellow actor Ralph Belmont were crossing a street in Hollywood when they were struck by a motorist. Ralph died instantly. Percy was injured and died 3 months later from complications of his injuries. He was 76. Just north of here is Colma, the Bay Area's legendary necropolis. A city where the dead outnumber the living, with its tongue-in-cheek motto, "It's great to be alive in Colma." There are somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5 million dead here, in this city of souls, with a living population of less than 2,000. The town was founded as a necropolis in 1924, after the city of San Francisco ran out of room and outlawed new interments within the city in 1900, and then began evicting cemeteries within the city around 1914. Hundreds of thousands of those buried here in Colma were relocated from San Francisco. There are now 17 cemeteries in Colma, including a pet cemetery, the tombstones stretching on as far as the eye can see. For our first Colma stop, let's hit Holy Cross Cemetery, where last time we found legends like Joe DiMaggio and Vince Guaraldi. This scenic cemetery has occasionally served as backdrop for film and television, including the cult classic Harold and Maude.
My boy, excuse me. One moment, please.
Let's begin in the section just in from the entrance on the left before the chapel, Section D. This is the grave of Maude Fay. She was a singer who gained worldwide fame as an operatic soprano in the early 20th century. She's remembered for her roles in the works of Wagner and Strauss, performing in Germany as well as London, and the Metropolitan Opera in New York. Maude lived to be 86. The next section north is Section I. You'll recall this is where we found baseball legend Joe DiMaggio last time. A nearby neighbor of Joltin' Joe is a woman named Hildreth Meiere. She was an artist remembered as one of the most noted muralists of the 20th century, mainly in the Art Deco style. Over her career, she completed some 100 commissions for everything from office buildings, churches, government buildings, restaurants, and more. Her work can be seen in sites like Radio City Music Hall, St. Bartholomew's Episcopal Church in Manhattan, the Nebraska State Capitol, and the National Academy of Sciences in DC. She worked in a variety of mediums, including paint, mosaic, ceramic, glass, and marble. Hildreth lived to be 68. Straight across the street northwest is Section B. Here lies a boxer named Willie Ritchie, real name Gerhard Steffen. Willie was the world lightweight champion from 1912 to 1914. His boxing record includes 77 fights with 45 wins, 9 by knockout. He retired from boxing in 1927 and lived to be 84. Willie was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2004. Continuing northeast, we reach Section 5, across the street from the mausoleum. Near a tree is the grave of James Nolan. The actor appeared in more than 150 productions in his career. He began acting on stage, including in A Streetcar Named Desire and Bus Stop, then began making movies in the 30s. Nolan's films include Dirty Harry and Airport. His later career would be dedicated principally to television, making appearances on shows like Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Perry Mason, The Fugitive, and The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. He died from cancer at age 69. Let's cross over now to the northeastern edge of the cemetery, to Section R2. Just in from the road, we find Alfred Abadie. He was a pioneer of early cinema, known for his work with Thomas Edison. He specialized in what were called actuality films, a predecessor of the modern documentary, which uses footage of real events to tell a story. His 1903 short film, Emigrants Landing at Ellis Island, was the first to document a ferry boat landing at Ellis Island, with dozens of passengers disembarking. The film was added to the National Film Registry of the Library of Congress for being culturally significant. He also made an educational film called Birth in 1917, the first to film the birth of a baby. Alfred lived to be 71. South of here is St. Michael's section, with a statue of St. Michael slaying a dragon as the centerpiece. In these grounds rests Erich Hoffer. He was an author known as a philosopher and social critic. He wrote 10 books over his career and would be awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his work. His best-known work is The True Believer, published in 1951. Other notable works include The Ordeal of Change, published in 1963. Erich lived to be 80. His grave features a flat cap, which he was known to wear, as all the cool kids do, am I right? Let's move on now to our next cemetery, Cypress Lawn, one of the most impressive in all of Colma. Cypress Lawn is broken up into 2 sections, separated by El Camino Real. In addition to the grand monuments across the grounds, it features several mausoleums and columbariums that are among the most visually stunning in all of North America. Let's begin in the section on the east side. Just in from this entrance, on the right, is the Lakeside Columbarium. What I love about this columbarium is the distinctive blue-green metallic facades of the niches, something you just don't see elsewhere. They're quite stunning. Among those resting in these colorful niches is Harry McClintock, known as Haywire Mac. He was a singer and songwriter, best known for his country folk song about a hobo's idea of paradise, the Big Rock Candy Mountains, first recorded in 1928.
In the Big Rock Candy Mountains, you never change your socks. There's a lake of stew and a whiskey too in the Big Rock Candy Mountains.
The song has been covered numerous times by other artists and featured in movies including Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And shows like Better Call Saul. Harry died in 1957 at age 74. Back out to the grounds, let's head northeast to Section I. You can probably guess what Lefty O'Doul was known for based on his tombstone here. Lefty was a professional baseball player and manager. He played in the major leagues for teams including the New York Giants, the New York Yankees, and Boston Red Sox as a pitcher and outfielder. He was part of the 1933 New York Giants team that won the World Series and was a 2-time batting champion. He also had success in the minor leagues with the San Francisco Seals, a team he would later manage from 1935 to 1951. To this day, Lefty remains one of the Bay Area's most popular sports figures. He lived to be 72. Let's cross over to the southern section of Cypress Lawn and visit my favorite part of this cemetery, the main mausoleum and columbarium. This is one of those mausoleums you should take time to just wander and get lost in, to soak in its unique beauty. Heading into the catacombs section, we find the crypt of Lucille Powers low on the left wall. The actress appeared in a dozen films in the late silent, early talkie eras. She made her debut as Miss Witherspoon in the 1928 film 3 Weekends alongside Clara Bow. Other films include Marquis Preferred and Man to Man. She retired from acting in 1934 and lived to be 69. Let's proceed now to my absolute favorite spot in all of Colma, indeed, among my favorite cemetery spots in the entire world. The columbarium here at Cypress Lawn. Divided into 3 distinct rooms, it features one of the largest and most spectacular collections of stained glass in North America, including one-of-a-kind Tiffany pieces. Videos do not do this space justice. The vibrance of the color in these rooms must be experienced in person, and literally takes your breath away when you first enter. It is an immersive experience unlike any other, dreamlike, otherworldly. The colorful light from the stained glass paints these rustic metallic niches in distinctly beautiful ways. Among those resting in this singular space, in Section A, is Matt Snyder. The actor appeared in just over a dozen films during the silent era, from 1913 to 1916. Born in 1835, he was one of the oldest actors working in the very early days of film. He played Alice's father in 1913's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Other films include The Unwritten Law, Salome Jane, and The Garden of Allah. Before the movies, Matt performed frequently on stage and had served in the Union Navy during the Civil War. Matt died in 1917, 1 year after shooting his final film. He was 81. Hard to leave this colorful place behind, but we must carry on and head back out to the grounds of the cemetery. In the northern end is a newer section, Heritage Court. Meet Danny Bulanadi. He was an artist known particularly as an inker for DC and Marvel Comics in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. He inked notable comic books including Fantastic Four, Daredevil, Transformers, Captain America, Spider-Man, and is credited for co-creating Captain Canada. He also worked as a storyboard artist for animated shows like Transformers and Extreme Ghostbusters. Danny lived to be 76. Let's proceed north now to Salem Memorial Park, one of Colma's Jewish cemeteries. Just in from the entrance on the left is Plot U, where Rob Wasserman is laid to rest. He was a Grammy Award-winning musician and composer. He's known particularly as a bass player, recording with some of the industry's biggest names, including Elvis Costello, Jerry Garcia, Oingo Boingo, Lou Reed, Neil Young, and more. His best-known works are his albums Solo, Duets, and Trios. Rob died from cancer at age 64. Crossing the street south, we find the Black family mausoleum, where Ben Black is entombed. He too was a composer known for his work in silent film and as a songwriter. He was music director for Paramount Theaters in New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Today he's best remembered perhaps as the co-composer of the song Moonlight and Roses, which would be featured in the soundtracks of films from Tin Pan Alley to The Astronaut's Wife.
Moonlight and roses bring wonderful memories of you.
Ben lived to be 61. Crossing back over El Camino Real West, we reach Greenlawn Memorial Park. Near the southern end of this cemetery is the grave of Victor Sen Young. The Asian American character actor was born in San Francisco to Chinese immigrants. He rose to fame playing number 2 son Jimmy Chan in the Charlie Chan films in the 30s and 40s, in more than a dozen films. Outside the Charlie Chan series, he appeared alongside Humphrey Bogart in Across the Pacific. And on television, he played Hop Sing in more than 100 episodes of Bonanza. Later in life, he ran a mail-order Chinese pottery business. While creating clayware and curing items in an oven, he died of natural gas poisoning from a gas leak. His body wasn't discovered for around 10 days. Victor was 65. Back again across the street east, we reach our next cemetery, Eternal Home, another Jewish cemetery. Near the northwest corner is the grave of Bill Graham. He's remembered as one of the Bay Area's legendary concert promoters. He played a major role in the musical renaissance of the 1960s. Among the acts he spearheaded included the Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, Big Brother and the Holding Company, and Janis Joplin. His venues, the Fillmore and Winterland Ballroom, became proving grounds for emerging acts. Bill Graham died in a helicopter crash in 1991 while returning home from a Huey Lewis and the News concert. He was 60. The following year, Bill was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Once again, we cross over El Camino Real to the west, where we're welcomed to Woodlawn Cemetery by one of the most distinctive gateways in all of Colma. Built into the structure of this gateway portal is a mausoleum and series of columbariums. This is the Azalea Terrace, where we find the niche and urn of Frances Saville. She was an operatic soprano, born in San Francisco and raised in Australia. She launched her operatic career in Europe, performing in works like Romeo and Juliet, Faust, and La Traviata. She then took her vocal talents to the US, performing in New York in operas like Carmen and Don Giovanni. By 1898, she became a regular at the Vienna Court Opera, where she was a favorite of Gustav Mahler. Fanny retired to Northern California and lived to be 70. Let's turn the compass west again and make our way to Bella Italia, or at least the Italian cemetery. Let's begin a couple sections in on the right, block 171. A few rows up from the bottom, we find the grave of Brian Bianchini. He was a top international model in the 90s and 2000s, modeling for campaigns like Reebok, Versace, Abercrombie & Fitch, and was featured in magazines like Vanity Fair, Glamour, Cosmopolitan, Playgirl, and Men's Fitness. Brian also appeared in 3 films, Girl for Girl, The Brotherhood, and The Black Magic. Sadly, Brian took his own life at just 25. Across the street south is block 169. Here we find the grave of a noted boxer named Fred Apostoli, known as the Boxing Bellhop. He won the world middleweight boxing title in 1938, holding the title for nearly a year. His boxing record consists of 72 fights, 61 wins, 31 by knockout. Fred ranks among the greatest middleweights of all time, and in 1978 was inducted into Ring Magazine Hall of Fame, then the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2003. He lived to be 60. Nearby is the mausoleum here in the Italian cemetery. In the columbarium we find the niche of J. Lawrence. He was a stand-up comedian and actor. He gained national attention performing stand-up comedy on television's The Colgate Comedy Hour and Toast of the Town. Jay then rose to fame playing Sergeant Begradian in the 1953 film Stalag 17. Television appearances include on Get Smart, Mike Hammer, and Dragnet, and Jay also lent his voice to animated productions like Heavy Traffic and Hong Kong Phooey. Jay lived to be 63. He was the brother of another noted TV comedian, Larry Storch. Continuing east across Hillside Boulevard, we arrive once again at Olivet Gardens Cemetery. Let's begin our time here in the columbarium. In room D is the niche of Virginia Brissac. Fans of mid-century cinema remember Virginia as the loving grandmother Stark in Rebel Without a Cause. Other notable films include Dark Victory, The Scarlet Clue, and an early adaptation of Three Godfathers. Over her career, she appeared in around 160 film and television productions. Earlier in her career, she had been an ingenue and leading lady on stage. Virginia lived to be 96. Northeast of here are the Garden of Memory crypts. High on the wall of Unit 8 is the crypt of Danniebell Hall. She was a popular gospel singer, rising to fame in the 70s. She wrote and performed many of her own songs, including Let Me Have a Dream and Create in Me, releasing 10 albums in her career. Her epitaph, The Designer's Original, is taken from her 1992 album of the same name. She lived to be 62. If you saw our last video here, you'll recall that one of the unique memorials at Olivet is A Showman's Rest, the Circus Showfolks of America Memorial. Circus performers were a tight-knit group. They performed together, traveled together, lived together, and were often even laid to rest together, here among their own. This whole section contains graves of numerous circus performers. That wraps up our time here in Colma. Let's continue north and make our only stop of the day to San Francisco City proper. Here in the city is another true gem of funerary art and architecture, the San Francisco Columbarium. The domed columbarium was built in 1898 in the style of neoclassical architecture. It was once part of the old Oddfellows Cemetery that used to be here, but when that was relocated to Colma during the early 20th century evictions, the columbarium remained, one of the few cemetery structures to remain in the city of San Francisco. It is now a San Francisco designated landmark. The multi-level columbarium contains an estimated 8,500 niches and feels like something of San Francisco's own mini pantheon. Before heading inside, there are a few folks commemorated on the outside of the building, whose ashes were interred in the garden here. Among them is a woman who loved the stars too fondly to be fearful of the night, Dorothea Klumpke. She was a noted astronomer in the late 19th, early 20th centuries. Dorothea worked at the Paris Observatory, where she became the director of the Bureau of Measurements, and was eventually made a Knight of the Order of the Legion of Honor. The Klumpke Roberts Award is named for her and her husband, Isaac Roberts, recognizing outstanding contributions to the public understanding of astronomy. Dorothea lived to be 81. Two of her sisters are also here, Anna Klumpke, who was an artist, and Julia Klumpke, who was a concert violinist and composer. Around back, adjacent to the main entrance of the columbarium, is Harry August Jansen, better known as Dante the Magician, the last of the great masters. He traveled the world in the early 20th century in a magic act with Howard Thurston. He would perform in vaudeville, burlesque, theater, and later in film and on television. He was known for his trademark three-word nonsense magical incantation, Simsalabim. After Thurston's death in 1936, Dante became the world's premier magician. Some of the films he appeared in include A Haunting We Will Go, alongside Laurel and Hardy, and Bunko Squad. After his death in 1955 at age 71, the era known as the Golden Age of Magic came to an end. He was cremated at Chapel of the Pines in Los Angeles, where his ashes were held until 2004, when the Dante Memorial Fund raised enough money to have his and his wife's ashes moved and interred at the San Francisco Columbarium. His name is also inscribed in the memorial wall at Chapel of the Pines. Let's head now into the Columbarium to find a few famous folks resting in these spectacular halls. On the ground level, let's head into Zephyrus' room to find the niche of Jose Santana high on the wall. If the name Santana is familiar to you, he was the father of musician Carlos Santana. Carlos learned from his father Jose, who was also a musician. Jose was a Mexican-born violinist who performed both with symphony orchestras and mariachi bands. His band Los Cardinales would perform in both Mexico and Southern California in the 50s. Then, relocating to San Francisco, he continued to perform in venues here throughout his life. He died in 1997 at age 84. Nearby is the Olympius room. Here we find one for you beer aficionados. This is the niche and urn of Ernst F. Baruth. With his son-in-law Otto Schinkel, he formed Anchor Brewing Company in 1896, one of America's first craft breweries. They specialized in steam beer. Ernst died in 1906, the same year as the devastating San Francisco earthquake, which also destroyed the brewery. They rebuilt the next year, and Anchor continues to make craft beer to this day. Let's make our way upstairs now to the second floor. Here we find a man whose name will be familiar to you fans of the Muppets, Jerry Jewell. He was recruited by Jim Henson as a puppeteer on Sam and Friends in the 50s and 60s, which introduced the Muppets. Over the years, Jerry would increasingly focus on writing, becoming one of the main writers for the Muppets in all their various incarnations, including The Muppet Show and the various Muppet movies.
We'll see you next time on The Muppet Show!
He was integral in developing the personalities of many of the Muppet characters. Jerry wrote for other Henson projects as well, including Fraggle Rock and Sesame Street. According to Lisa Henson, quote, "So much of the humor, irreverence, caring, and heart began with Jerry. He was in many ways the real voice of the Muppets." Jerry won 2 Primetime Emmys for his work. He died from pancreatic cancer at age 67. Just down the hall is a pioneering computer scientist, John Backus. He's remembered as the designer of the programming language Fortran, the first widely used high-level programming language. Other of his accomplishments are listed right here on his niche, including the National Medal of Science and a recipient of the Turing Award. He lived to be 82. One more flight of stairs up brings us to the double-decker niche of another icon of Bay Area music, Chet Helms. He came to be known as the father of the Summer of Love. Chet was the founder and manager of Big Brother and the Holding Company, with Janis Joplin as its leader. He staged free concerts and other cultural events at Golden Gate Park that became the backdrop of the Summer of Love in 1967. As many as 100,000 people, mostly young hippies, beatniks, and counterculture figures, convened in the Haight-Ashbury district of Golden Gate Park for music, spiritual awakening, hallucinogenic drugs, and free love. Helms produced the first psychedelic light show concerts and developed other bands that had the distinctive San Francisco sound of the era, including the Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, and more. He worked for a time with Bill Graham, who we visited earlier. Chet Helms died from complications of a stroke at age 62. Let's head back outside the main building here to one of the newer annexes, specifically the Hall of Olympians. Just in time for Pride Month, here in Dionysus Hall we find a memorial to a key figure and a tragic one in the gay rights movement. Harvey Milk was the first openly gay man to be elected to public office here in California, as a member of the Board of Supervisors in 1978. During his tenure, Milk sponsored a bill banning discrimination based on sexual orientation in public accommodations, housing, and employment. The bill passed, and Mayor George Moscone signed it into law. The sole vote against the bill was cast by Dan White. On November 27, 1978, White, the disgruntled former supervisor, who had resigned in frustration, entered City Hall with a gun and shot and killed both Mayor George Moscone and Harvey Milk. Compounding the tragedy was the fact that Dan White was only convicted of voluntary manslaughter and spent just 5 years in prison for the double murder. George Moscone was a much-beloved mayor, having opened up City Hall to the diversity of San Francisco, appointing African Americans, Asian Americans, and gay people, and thus he came to be known as the People's Mayor. George was laid to rest at Holy Cross Cemetery in Colma. Harvey Milk was cremated after his death, a portion of his ashes scattered at sea, another portion reportedly buried at Castro Street. So this is a cenotaph here at the San Francisco Columbarium. Harvey was just 48, and he quickly became a martyr in the LGBTQ community. He was posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2009. Harvey Milk's story has been told on screen a few times, including the Academy Award-winning 1984 documentary, The Times of Harvey Milk. Then in 2008, a biopic was made about his life, titled Milk. It starred Sean Penn in the title role. Milk received 8 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. Sean Penn won the Oscar for his performance as Harvey Milk.
All men are created equal. No matter how hard you try, you can never erase those words.
You gotta give them hope.
To all of Hollywood Graveyard's friends in the LGBTQ community, we love you. Time to leave San Francisco behind and cross the Bay Bridge over into Oakland. Our first stop here is Cathedral of Christ the Light. This unique glass and wood cathedral was built in 2008. In the lower level is a mausoleum. On the far side, near the crucifix, is the crypt of a beloved figure from the sports world, John Madden. He had a brief career as a football player, but really came into his own as a football coach, one of the greatest in the history of the sport. He came on as the linebackers coach for the Oakland Raiders in 1967, and in 1969 became head coach of the Raiders, a position he held for nearly a decade. He would lead the team to 8 playoff appearances and the franchise's first Super Bowl title in 1977. After retiring from coaching, John Madden became a familiar face and voice to sports fans across the country as one of the most recognized commentators for NFL telecasts.
Makes a little basketball twist there and pivot, and boom, the ball's there.
He would also lend his name and commentary to the Madden NFL video game series, the best-selling American football game franchise. Never one to rest on his laurels, John Madden also took his talents to film and television, often appearing as himself.
Like I was saying, light beer tastes great.
Memorable film appearances include In The Replacements and Little Giants. In 2006, John Madden was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He lived to be 85, passing away in 2021. Our tour takes us now a little further northeast to a block of several cemetery organizations, including the massive Mountain View Cemetery. Just before the entrance to Mountain View is Chapel of the Chimes, a columbarium and mausoleum. The present building dates largely from a 1928 redevelopment based on the designs of architect Julia Morgan, who rests in neighboring Mountain View. Chapel of the Chimes features Spanish Gothic architecture with Moorish motifs. A few famous folks rest herein. If we enter the newer upper level off Howe Street, we find the crypt of John Lee Hooker immediately on the left. As his crypt denotes, John was king of the boogie. The guitar player, singer, and songwriter rose to prominence in the 40s and 50s with his electric guitar style of Delta blues. Some of his best-known songs include Boogie Chillin', One Bourbon, One Scotch, One Beer, and Boom Boom.
Boom, 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 boom. Gonna shoot you right down.
John won 4 Grammys and a Lifetime Achievement Award, and was inducted both into the Blues and Rock and Roll Halls of Fame. Today he is considered one of the greatest guitarists and blues vocalists of all time. He lived to be 83. Heading further into the mausoleum, there's a glass columbarium nearby. Here is the niche of funny man Stephen Stucker. As an actor, he's remembered for playing bizarre and quirky characters. Perhaps his best-known role is that of Johnny, the control room worker in the 1980s comedy Airplane.
What kind of plane is it?
Oh, it's a big, pretty white plane with red stripes and curtains in the window and wheels, and it looks like a big Tylenol.
He would also appear in Airplane 2 and played the stenographer in the Kentucky Fried Movie. In 1984, Stephen was diagnosed with AIDS. He publicly disclosed the illness, becoming one of the first known entertainers to do so. He died from complications of the disease in 1986 at age 38. Let's head next door now and revisit the sprawling and grandiose Mountain View Cemetery, which overlooks downtown Oakland and the bay off in the distance. We'll begin here in the section just behind the main mausoleum. Following this sidewalk, we find a plot marked with the name Wilson. There are no other grave markers on this family plot, but it is reportedly the final resting place of a handful of old Hollywood entertainers. Viola Berry was a silent film actress who appeared in around 30 films between 1911 and 1916. Her films include The Land of Might and The Sea Wolf. She died in 1964 at age 70. Viola was married to F. McGrew Willis, who is also reportedly resting here. He was a screenwriter for the movies, penning more than 100 films between 1914 and 1941. These include A Blonde for a Night and Charlie's Aunt. Willis died in 1957 at age 66. Viola's sister is also here. Violet Wilson had small roles in 4 films in the 30s and 40s, including The Moon is Down and Mademoiselle Fifi. She died in 1964, age 69. Continuing northeast into the cemetery, just beyond the water fountain is Plot 11. Here lies Ina Coolbrith. She was a writer and poet, a prominent figure in the San Francisco Bay Area literary community. As it says here on her stone, Ina was California's first poet laureate, so named in 1915. She came to be known as the Sweet Singer of California, with her poetry that featured sensuous descriptions of natural scenes. Ina lived to be 86. Heading still further northeast into the cemetery, we arrive at Plot 33. Just down the hill from the sidewalk is the Morgan family plot, where Julia Morgan is laid to rest. She was a noted California architect who worked on a number of significant buildings here in the Golden State. We visited the beautiful Chapel of the Chimes earlier. Julia was the architect who designed a significant portion of the original building. Perhaps her best-known work was on Hearst Castle in San Simeon, William Randolph Hearst's legendary estate, now an historic landmark. Julia was the first woman to receive the American Institute of Architects' highest award, the AIA Gold Medal. She lived to be 85. Up the hill north of here is Plot 72. Next to the road, we find the grave of Dorothy Toy. She was an Asian American dancer of Japanese descent. In the 30s and 40s, she teamed up with Paul Wing to form a popular tap dance duo, Toy and Wing, often billed as the Chinese Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. They were the first Asian Americans to enter the tap dance scene. They headlined major vaudeville theaters and danced on Broadway and the London Palladium. Later, the duo would produce an all-Asian musical revue that toured internationally. Dorothy taught dance later in life and lived to be 102. Let's take a long drive north to a newer section of the cemetery, Plot 76. Down the hill a short ways is the grave of Glenn Burke. He was a Major League Baseball player for the Los Angeles Dodgers and Oakland Athletics between 1976 and 1979. Facing discrimination for his sexuality, Glenn was essentially forced out of play, and he retired after 4 seasons. After retiring, he came out publicly as gay, the first professional baseball player to do so. He was quoted as saying it was his mission as a gay ball player to break the stereotype. Glenn and his teammate Dusty Baker are also often credited as originators of the high five, when they raised their arms and slapped palms after a home run in 1977. Glenn died from complications of AIDS at age 42. Just south of here is Plot 82. Near the road is the grave of a young actor gone too soon, Angus Cloud. Born in Oakland, Angus was of Irish descent. He is best known for his breakout role as Fezco in 16 episodes of the TV series Euphoria.
All I'm saying is leave her and her friends alone. It's a threat. We're not gonna be having this conversation.
And his films include Abigail, Freaky Tales, and he voiced Snickers in the Garfield movie. Tragically, on July 31st, 2023, Angus was found dead of an accidental drug overdose at just 25. To pay tribute, Euphoria's director used archive footage of Angus in the finale of the 3rd season. He was laid to rest here with his father, who had passed just 2 months earlier. Doubling back west, let's make our way to Section 37. If the best part of waking up for you is Folgers in your cup, you can thank J.A. Folger here. After the discovery of gold in California in 1849, a teenage Folger and his brothers made their way to California to find their fortune. But instead of heading to the gold fields, he stayed in San Francisco and helped build a spice and coffee mill. In 1860, he founded the J.A. Folger Coffee Company, known today simply as Folgers Coffee. It has since become one of the most recognized and popular coffee brands in North America. James Folger died in 1889 at age 54. South of here is the Hughes Mausoleum, the final resting place of David Hughes. He was a businessman who undertook various endeavors throughout his life, including a successful ranch, stores, and his steam paddy company, which built the first steam locomotive on the Pacific coast. But David is perhaps best remembered today for his association with the construction and completion of the first transcontinental railroad. While he wasn't involved directly in the construction of the railroad, it was Hughes's idea to complete the last link of the railroad with a golden spike. Hughes provided the golden spike, which was driven by Leland Stanford to connect the Central Pacific Railroad with the Union Pacific Railroad at Promontory Summit in Utah on May 10th, 1869. The original golden spike is now on display at Stanford University. David Hughes lived to be 93. For our last Mountain View stop, let's continue back toward the entrance to the Garden Mausoleums. High on the wall in Mausoleum 2 is the crypt of Ernie Lombardi. He was a Major League Baseball player, a catcher for teams including the Brooklyn Robins, Cincinnati Reds, Boston Braves, and New York Giants. Lombardi was an 8-time All-Star and was part of the Reds team that won the 1940 World Series. The gentle giant was known as a heavy hitter and also a very slow runner, which didn't impede his prowess on the field. Lombardi was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1986 and lived to be 69. Next door to Mountain View is St. Mary Cemetery, a Catholic cemetery. Here in Dormitory U rests Cran Denton. The actor appeared in close to 70 film and television productions in his career. Among his best-known roles are as Walter Cunningham in To Kill a Mockingbird, Hecky in The Parent Trap, and Jesse in HUD. and he made numerous appearances on television, on shows like Hawaiian Eye, Bonanza, Thriller, The Donna Reed Show, and more. He also had a notable career on Broadway in plays like Bus Stop. Denton was just 52 and he died after suffering a heart attack. For our last stop of the day, let's turn the compass southeast to visit Oakland's Evergreen Cemetery. Founded in 1903, it's the second largest cemetery in Oakland after Mountain View. On the grounds here at Evergreen is a monument to those who died in the Jonestown cult mass suicide and murders. Jonestown was a settlement in Guyana established by the People's Temple, a religious cult led by Jim Jones in the 1970s. The settlement had a population of around 1,000 people, including children. On November 18, 1978, at the direction of Jones, the entire community was instructed to commit, quote, revolutionary suicide through the ingesting of cyanide-laced fruit drinks. Most did so voluntarily, but those who resisted were injected against their will, including the children. In total, more than 900 people died at the settlement. Around 400 unclaimed bodies from this tragic event are buried here at Evergreen. The names of all those who perished on that day are inscribed on these stones. A couple of famous entertainers also rest here at Evergreen. Earl Father Hines was a jazz pianist and bandleader, a key figure in the development of jazz and jazz piano in the early 20th century. He played with legends like Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, and Louis Armstrong. Hines performed and recorded prolifically over his 79 years, releasing over 100 albums. Among his best-known songs are Blues in Thirds, Everything Depends on You, and A Monday Date. His music can also be heard on the soundtracks of productions from Two Against the World to Boardwalk Empire. He even appeared in front of the camera a few times, including in 1951's The Strip. Hines died of a heart attack at age 79. We've featured just about all of the child stars who played the Little Rascals in the R-Gang comedies of the 20s to the 40s, but there's one we haven't found yet, and he rests here near the northern edge of Evergreen. Here lies Alan Hoskins, better known as the lovable Farina. He appeared in 106 episodes between 1922 and 1931, more than any other character. He became one of the series' most popular characters, and at the height of his career was earning more than any other child star in Hollywood.
Hello, Jack. Hello, Farina. Ain't you folks coming to the party? What party? You know, Stymie, he's going to the orphan's home today, and I got up a little party for him. Anything to eat? Sure. I bought a lot of ice cream and cake, and candy, too. Hey, fellas, gang, come here!
Alan would also appear in films like Reckless alongside Jean Harlow and William Powell. His final film was 1936's After the Thin Man. After his acting career, he dedicated his later life to helping young people with drug problems and mental illness at a rehabilitation center. In 1975, Alan was inducted into the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame. He passed away at age 59 from cancer. His grave remained unmarked for 20 years until fans coordinated and raised funds for this marker to be placed in the year 2000. And that concludes our tour. What are some of your favorite memories of the stars we visited today? Share them in the comments below, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more famous grave tours. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Any Green Day fans out there? Any die-hard fans who can date their listening to the popular punk band prior to Dookie? If so, you'll know that Green Day's debut studio album was 1990's 39 Smooth. The album cover features the image of a young woman standing in a cemetery. Well, you'll be curious to know that that cemetery is Mountain View here in Oakland, and this is the exact spot that photo was taken. Minus the large tree in the background, which has since been removed, it looks pretty much the same. And if you've ever wanted to see the perspective of the young woman standing there in the cemetery, well, here you go. This was her POV 36 years ago on that album cover. Pretty cool. Or should I say, Trey cool. Well, Trey didn't play on 39 Smooth, but you get the idea.